So we got a '07 Toyota minivan. The customer says they were driving along on the interstate and the vehicle just cut off on them. And she's deader than a doornail. Let me get a jump box, get some juice going to it, and get it started. All right, let's see what happens here. That don't sound good. The engine's spinning 100 miles an hour. Well, it's not a dead battery. He probably kept trying to start it till the battery went dead. We got a full tank of gas. He just put gas in it. I wonder if he got some bad gas. All right, let's get it pushed in and continue on. First thing you gotta do is get some juice to this thing. So I'm hooked the battery charger up, get it charged up 100%, and then we can start looking it over and see what's wrong with it. Well, for it to die on the interstate like that while you're driving it, just driving along, I mean, I'm thinking ignition, fuel, something like that. I'm not gonna say alternator or battery because I put a jump box on it, gave it 12 volts and it cranked away and it didn't do anything. It was spinning like it was gonna be some type of ignition or fuel. You know, let me look at the miles too when it's cranking up because it's very possible could have snapped the chain, but that's our worst case scenario. So while I'm thinking about it, let's definitely check the miles in this thing. I mean, it's not likely that it's a chain, but it's just, you know, it could be 179,559. Let's let this thing charge up and do its thing, and we'll see in about an hour. All right, first thing we're going to do is remove the cover, set it aside, and I'm going to check for spark. The easiest way to do it is put the test light on the ground side, make sure it's lit up, and we'll pop off a coil pack. I have one of my guys in there, we'll spin it over, and we'll check to see if it's got fire. It's just a quick way to check it. And I like doing it this way too, because I can look and see if it has fire, how far that fire is coming out. All right, so if you look right here, we don't have any fire. No fire. That's good, thank you. He's, no. Good. He's deaf, so communicating's a little bit difficult sometimes. You gotta be careful too, because I may say we're good and he decides he wants to spin it over and my hand could be in a bad spot. That wouldn't be good. Let me, let's do this here real quick. Go ahead. Good. All right. Time belt's not broken because the camshaft's spinning around. Thank you. That's good. We're good. All right, moving right along. I'm gonna throw my scanner on it and see if it's reading RPMs. So if you don't know, the OBD2 connector is located right there, just above the brake pedal. Let's turn the key in the on position. Go with the scanner. Toyota. Do automatic ID. Got a '07 Toyota. That's correct. We hit OK. So let's do a code scan first. Let's just see if there's any codes in there. We'll do a pre-scan. I'm not going to add any more information right now. There's no engine codes, no transmission codes, no cruise control codes. Zeros across the board. So there are no codes. Let's do this. Let's go into engine. Display data. Let's do engine data. So I'm going to crank it and let's see if the computer's reading any RPMs. We're going to start with looking at the crank sensor because the first thing it does is it picks up crank signal. The crank signal tells it what the RPMs are, which tells the car that it's running and you need spark and fuel and everything else. So let's do this. Let's go back. Let's go to troubleshooter real quick. Engine. Symptoms. Driving, electrical, noising, starting problems. Crank, no start, no fuel. You know, let's do this. All right, so after looking at troubleshooter, I'm gonna get a Noid light. I'm gonna check the pulse on the injectors. All right, so we already know we don't have spark at the cool. I went and got a Noid light and I stuck it on the injector, and I'm gonna check to see if we have injector pulse. All right, we don't have any injector pulse. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and check and make sure I have 12 volts going to the injector and the coil. We're on injector number 4. The white wire is your control wire, and you go down this way here, brown turns into black and red goes into like a junction that's on the dash, comes out of the junction and comes to a 10-amp fuse, which is behind the dash on the left-hand side. So I'm gonna turn the key back on and check my power at that fuel injector. So we know the brown wire is going to be the hot wire. Let's go ahead and get the meter hooked up here. Let me turn it on. Let me go turn the key on. Let's see what kind of volts we have. So we're fine, we have 14 volts. And the reason why it's showing 14 volts is I have a jump box and a battery charger hooked to it. The key was left on last night and the battery was so dead I couldn't even get the charger to actually kick on. So I had to kick start it with the jump box. So if I take the jump box off, it would probably drop a little bit, but that's why it's reading 14.5. Just to cover everything, I'm gonna go ahead and check the hot wire going to the ignition coil. All right, let's go ahead and back out of this. And let's go to the ignition coil. Go down to diagrams, wiring diagrams, go down to the bottom, and here are your coils right here. An easy way to quickly pick it out is, if you look at the red wire coming in, it's connected to 3, then it splits off and turns into green, it's connected to the other 3. So let's go ahead and let's check out the red wire and see what we got on volts on that. We're looking at the number 6 cylinder. That's gonna be a green wire, not a red wire. So let's go ahead and tap into the green wire and let's see what kind of volts we got. All right, it's the same as the injector, 14.4 volts. So we know we're getting the correct current. We're just not getting a signal to either the fuel injector or the ignition coil. The next thing I'm gonna look at is the crank sensor. Let's make sure that it's got the correct information going to it and coming out of it. All right, so what I've done is I tapped into the crank sensor. I've got my scope ready. We're gonna check to see if it has any kind of reference. So if you look, that's a good waveform right here. It wasn't working before. Me pulling on the wire, it could be just a bad crankshaft sensor or a bad connector at the crankshaft. I think we're in the right direction. I would like to get it to mess up again though, because I didn't have anything before. Now I've got everything, and all I did was yank and pulling that wire, and if that sensor has got a bad connection inside, it could be messed up. I'm gonna leave everything hooked up, come back like every 20 minutes, crank it, see if the signal stays the same. I'm hoping it messes up. My brother was telling me that he was driving a car over the bridge, like I said earlier, and it cut off, but it did start back up with him, then it cut off again. And this is the first time I got it to start up. But we're gonna give it about an hour, come back and check it every so minutes. It still continues to start, we're gonna put a crankshaft sensor in. I saw it come out about, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in the past hour and a half. And every time it starts up and I have the same signal, we are definitely gonna go with a crank sensor. I'm 100% sure by me messing with it, I probably moved the inside. I probably moved the connector on the inside a little bit and it's working now, but it's definitely gonna cause issues. So I'm gonna go ahead and price up a crank sensor, call the customer and see what they wanna do. So that crank position sensor is located behind the compressor. You're supposed to remove the compressor. That's about a 4.5 hour project. I have gotten lucky in the past and was able just to get it back far enough to get my hands up in there. It took me about an hour, and that's what we're going to attempt to do today. Not remove that compressor, but just get it back enough out of the way. First thing we got to do is remove that serpentine belt. All right, now let's get it up in the air. And like I always say, if you have to jack your car up, safety first, use jack stands. I have the luxury of a lift, and you guys probably don't at home, so Be careful. Last thing you want is that car to fall off the jack and land on your ass. All right, so there's 4 12 millimeters that go through the compressor to hold it on. I think, to be honest with you, the worst part of this whole damn job is just getting to the bolts that hold the compressor on. So we're going to give it a shot. Like I said, we're going to try to do it without taking the compressor all the way off. Just backing it up far enough to get my hands back there. All right, that is 2. The 2 easiest ones, should I say. All right, to get the top 2, we're going to go from the top side. The top bolts are a 12 also. They're just a little bit more, like I say, of a pain in the ass to get to. But once you start loosening them up, come on, bitch. Now the fun one, the last one. So I know you're not able to see it, but I was able to get a magnet and I got the socket on the actual nut. All right. I'm on, fingers crossed. Bingo. All right, so here's your compressor right here. Right back here is your crank sensor. It's held on with a 10 millimeter. And I'm pretty sure, like I say, I'm able to get this compressor back a little bit further and we'll get a 10 millimeter on there, take it out and go back with it. All right, so what I've done is I got a pry bar behind the compressor. Push down on it and stuck a 2x4 to hold it. And I should be able to get right inside here and ratchet it out. Just gotta find the right combination. I thought a deep well was gonna do the trick. It's like I feel the bolt is literally right there. You know what? I'm gonna switch to my secret weapon, little nubby. Hopefully I can get back in here this way, because I can get my hand there just fine. Boom. Like I said, just couldn't remember the right combination, but once I did, in like Flynn. There you go. All right. So I'm not gonna lie, this crank sensor is fucking stuck in here. Time for a beer break. All right. But there you go, 1 crank sensor. So we just got the new sensor in. This is the part number to it. This is the new sensor. Now it didn't come with any grease. I'm gonna put a little bit of the dielectric grease. I'm gonna put it just inside here, simply because of where it's located at. You don't want to take a chance of water or moisture getting up in there. I like to put a little bit around the O-rings also. That way it'll turn around and it'll slide in a little bit better. Basically, it's just a reverse procedure when you're putting it back together, and it'll probably go in a little bit easier than it came out, I'm sure. They always seem to. Got it tight. All right, now let's get the plug on there. All right, make sure you hear it snap, because the last thing you want to do is go back with it, turn around, have to take a bag apart because the bitch didn't snap in place. Now getting the compressor back in, it should just slide back on with no issues. I'm pretty sure they could have found a place on the transmission to put that crank sensor. I wonder about the engineers who design some of this bullshit. Probably on freaking crack. Let's put the motherfucker behind here. Something as simple as a crank sensor should be really accessible. But they're not stupid, they do it so you have to take it somewhere and get it done. I'm gonna go ahead and stick the belt on the compressor for now. At least where it's supposed to be. Hopefully when I get up top, I have to fight it by so much. All right, on to the top bolts. So I'm gonna knock out the easy one first. Let's get it out of the way. I'll probably jinx myself. This will probably end up being a hard one. All right. Put a little extension on it. All right, one more. First thing I'm gonna do is stick my hand on it. I think if I went in this way, stud's right there. He is right there. So I'm thinking it might be easier if you're doing this to pay somebody else. No, I'm just fucking with you. Put it on a, so stick it, I'm thinking stick it on like this, on a magnet. I'm thinking, I got my hand on the stud. If I can go in here like this, where's that stud at? And get it on there with my finger. Bingo. Hell yeah. That's 2 bingos in a row. Yeah, get that for me, please. It went on a lot easier than it came off, brother. All right, let's go ahead and get the serpentine belt back on. So I lost you. The camera cut off when I started putting the serpentine belt on, but the last thing I had to say was on that serpentine belt, make sure before you start it, check all your pulleys so the belt's sitting on there correctly, because you don't want to start it and it be half on one. You'll end up with more of a mess. So take an extra second and make sure you check that belt. All right, let's go ahead and start this and let's see what we got. So that Toyota seems to be running just fine. I got to button up a few more things. Got to put a bolt back in the coil and tape off the wire that I probed. Other than those last few things, there's nothing else to do. This video is done. Hopefully what I showed you was going to save you some time and some money you're doing at your house. The biggest thing is make sure if you jack it up, use jack stands, safety first. All right, that's it for this video. Appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Catch you later.